Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
I'm Christian Steven.M.Greer. You're watching Disclosures of the Third Kind.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Disclosures of the Third Kind. You're listening to me, Christian Steven.M.Greer. Today I'll be talking about my book, Beyond Roswell, parts in it and things that I've found out since I wrote the book, and the release of my new book, The Undisclosed Visitors. So, let's crack on. One aspect I'd like to talk about today in my vast Bible that I've written here is the Air Force's explanation of, we call it the dummy explanation, which doesn't make any sense when you look at the explanation itself. So I will show you the picture of the dummy. There is the picture of the dummy there. Two Air Force workers stood next to the dummy. That is the picture they provided in their book, The Roswell Report, Case Closed. And that's my book, by the way, Beyond Roswell, Cold War Cover-Ups and Conspiracy Theories, if you can see that there with my terrible camera. Right, so why is there a problem with the Air Force explanation? Well, there's multiple problems with it. One, the timeline doesn't hold. The Roswell incident itself occurred between July 1st and July 8th, 1947. The cover-up had been enacted on July 9th by General Roger Ramey and Colonel Clements McMullen, head of the Air Force at the time, who basically said that this is above top secret, it's beyond that, and you're not to be discussed again. And that was his words to General Thomas J. Dubose, who's pictured with General Roger Ramey in the press release photo with the debris. So it's important because he came out in 1990 and did that to Kevin.D.Randle and Don Schmitt when they investigated it. He stated in no uncertain terms, and he wasn't led to that conclusion, he stated himself that what was in the photo, in the press release, was a cover-up. It was not the debris that was brought in by Major Jesse Marcel. That's important. Again, that will be covered in my new book, The Undisclosed Visitors. I cover it lightly in Beyond Roswell, but in The Undisclosed Visitors, I go further with that explanation. Now, why doesn't the dummy explanation hold? Two facets to this is the Ramey memo. One, explains victims, so that rules the dummy explanation out for one, because we're talking about victims here, live beings who have been in an accident, not dummies. And dummies, secondly, were not used by the Air Force in projects before Excelsior, which began in '59, I believe. But the Air Force used dummies in test drops between 1953 and I believe about 1959 to 1960. Again, by 1959, they were using Air Force personnel from these drops, such as Dan.D. Fulgham, who bumped his head. And again, I explain that in my book. They tried to pass that off as the explanation for the alien heads, which doesn't make any sense. I'll show you the picture of the Dan.D. Fulgham. Here we are. This is Major Dan.D. Fulgham. If you can see this photo here, that's Major Dan.D. Fulgham there. Again, he bumped his head. This was during Project Excelsior, about November 1959 it was. He bumped his head on the way down, got caught up in his parachute as he was dropping. I think this was about 20,000 feet, 20 to 30,000 feet. This was a high test drop for pilots, I believe, that they were testing parachute equipment and how basically Air Force personnel could parachute from high altitude planes. So being with the U-2 spy plane, etc., if they were over on enemy territory and got caught, how they could jump and parachute from those high altitude planes. So he'd hit his head on the way down, lost consciousness. Luckily, the parachute opened at, I think it was 5,000 feet, 10,000 feet. Luckily, and he was dropped to safety without any injury. He was taken to hospital with his injuries, and they explained that that's what Glenn Dennis saw when he took this airman to the Roswell Army Airfield Hospital. That's not what happened whatsoever, and the timeline is completely different. Glenn Dennis was specific when he said it. It was July 1947, not November 1959. They are two different timelines. So again, it's a good little cover up from the Air Force, but fortunately, when it doesn't withstand scrutiny whatsoever. So that is that theory ruled out. The other point with the dummy explanation is, again, they didn't start using them until 1953. That can be proven with a timeline, ladies and gentlemen. That's proven. And I've got a model here of what the converging testimony of Glenn Dennis, his nurse, that basically said what she saw in the hospital, when the Roswell Army Airfield Base Hospital, when it was being autopsied, and the one that was brought in, I think, that was potentially still alive. I'm not sure, though. There's not enough information to state that. That there, ladies and gentlemen, is what the being looked like, if you can see that. It was more humanoid in appearance than it was alien. Had a silver flight suit, tight-fitting blackout suit. Cranium was oversized. The ears were... They weren't really ears. They were all more like small holes. The features were quite different to human. The eyes were bigger than humans, and basically, so that they weren't grey as is portrayed in abduction cases. They were more a skin tonal colour, not like us again, but closer to us than they were the archetypal grey alien. So that's what was seen. So that testimony there. Again, the second part of why the dummy explanation does not hold any water whatsoever is the Ramey memo itself. Now, for anybody who's done investigation on the Ramey memo, many people say that it can't be fully read. The analysis is somewhat only early in early days. The AI analysis can't pick up exactly what's said on that memo. I used, well, actually 5 different AI softwares now to analyse the Ramey memo. My conclusion is pretty much not far off what David Rudiak got, actually. So again, that's in my Ramey memo chapter. FWAAF acknowledges that a disk is found west of, which is an interesting point. That can be read with medium confidence. The Cordon location was a wreck near operation at the, and again, that's read with medium confidence. We've got team at Fort Worth, Tex, high confidence. Aviators, they will ship, in the disc, they will ship for A1 to 8th Army Air. That can be read with medium confidence. This is a very, very interesting part. That CIC/team said this misstate meaning of story and think. That can be read with medium confidence, ladies and gentlemen. Again, so they're misstating the story. So the weather balloon story, as Colonel Thomas J. DuBose said, was a cover-up. It was not true. Top secret, that can be read with high confidence. So clearly this was top secret. Ramey, high confidence. So Ramey had something to do with this. That's his, and this is the most important line, and I don't know if you can see that there properly, ladies and gentlemen. And the victims of the wreck in the disc, they will ship. That is read with high confidence. Now that blows the armies, or the Army Air Forces, and then the Air Forces explanation straight out of the water. If this was just dummies, there would be no need to say they were victims, because clearly they weren't. So if that is the case, and I will point out, ladies and gentlemen, that those that want to discredit Glenn Dennis's testimony is incorrect, because Glenn Dennis has undergone AI analysis of the truthfulness of his testimony, and it came back saying that yes, actually he was being truthful. The same with Jesse Marcel, the same with Thomas J. DuBose. So take from that what you will, and the same with Jesse Marcel Jr. as well, who Jesse Marcel showed the debris to on the evening of July 7th, early July 8th. So take from that what you will, but it blows the Air Force's explanation straight out of the water. And again, if you did enjoy those parts, you'll enjoy my book, Beyond Roswell, Cold War Cover-Ups and Conspiracy Theories. It's available on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and I think Rakuten as well, and a few others. But I'm fighting to get it into shops, or on Waterstones as well. Fighting to get it in on paperback in shops. At the moment, it's just available online as a paperback and as a Kindle book. But you can get those. Yes, you can get those online. And I'll provide, if anybody's interested in a signed copy, I can provide that too. I've spoken with, in this book, I speak with Kevin.D.Randle. I speak with I also speak with Nick Pope, who unfortunately has recently passed away. So I got to speak with him before he passed away in November. So there's a few others as well I speak to in the book. Nick Pope was interesting. He came back with a very sceptical view on Roswell, but it's elaborated in my book on what he said there. He wasn't too sure, although in his interviews he stated differently. He said that, no, I believe, after the AI analysis of Colonel Thomas J. DuBose's testimony and others, that there's something strange that went on at Roswell. He wasn't too sure in his email, though. He was sceptical, to say the least. So I'm not sure where Nick Pope stood on Roswell. But Kevin.D.Randle, he states undoubtedly that, yes, there were 2 crash sites and it was a complete cover-up. The information and the testimony he received over 50 years of study of Roswell is undoubtedly points to the extraterrestrial hypothesis. And that's another point. He told me that Major Edwin Easley and General Arthur Exum both said that by following the extraterrestrial hypothesis, you are on the right path, basically, that yes, that's what it is. It was not a weather balloon, it was a complete cover-up. So yes, take from those testimonials what you will, ladies and gentlemen, but the documentation and the all the investigations have said differently. So yes, if you have enjoyed this short, albeit episode, but I'm trying to do longer episodes. It's like bite-sized ones for people to be able to enjoy without having to watch a full hour, you know. So I'd like to try and fit as much in as possible in a small time. But if you've enjoyed this, please do follow my channel, Disclosures of the Third Kind, and check out my book, Beyond Roswell, Cold War Cover-Ups and Conspiracy Theories. I guarantee you will enjoy it, and it will open your mind, as the subject has done mine. And check out also The Undisclosed Visitors, which is coming on May the 1st. Check it out on Amazon, and it will be on Barnes & Noble and Rakuten and Waterstones as well, hopefully. So yes, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and keep checking those skies, and we are not alone. Disclosures coming soon, hopefully in the next year. I don't think it'll be quick, but I think it's coming, and we have to prepare for that, and that's what my channel aims to do. Okay, take care everybody. See you for the next episode.